You're listening to Retail Disrupted, a podcast that explores the latest industry developments and the trends that will shape how we shop in the future. I'm your host, Natalie Berg. Welcome back to another episode of Retail Disrupted. You might have seen the news over on LinkedIn that the podcast has hit a pretty major milestone. It's now had over 10,000 downloads. To me, this kind of feels like a big deal when you consider that when I first started out, I recorded an episode where half of the episode, I didn't realize that my microphone was on mute. So yeah, I have come a long way. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, to all the listeners that continue to tune in each week. And of course, thank you to my guests for coming on and making the podcast what it is. Thank you for contributing to the conversation and sharing your views on retail and its direction of travel. It's been so amazing to learn from you all. And, every week I'm learning something new. The podcast is booked out now until March next year. And I'm finding that sometimes I'm even having to release 2 episodes a week just to stay on top of things because there's so much happening. There's so many interesting people to speak to. Definitely not short of content. What I am short of is time. And so I definitely won't be doing the whole 2 episodes a week on a regular basis because there are just not enough hours in the day. But from time to time, you will be getting some bonus content, and especially this time of year when there's just a lot to talk about. If you want to support the podcast, sharing an episode on social media or leaving a quick rating, ideally a 5-star one, leaving a quick rating on Apple or Spotify really makes a big difference, more than you realize. Finally, I will be sharing the details soon, but I wanted to announce that the Retail Disrupted newsletter is going live. I'm going to be launching a newsletter on Substack. There will be both a paid and free version, and I'm not going to say any more about that now, but watch this space. Now, for today's episode, I'm delighted to welcome Marc Vicente to the podcast. Marc is the Group Digital Director at Kingfisher, which, as many of you know, is one of the largest home improvement retailers in Europe. In his current role, Marc leads Kingfisher's digital transformation, and he also oversees strategy and operations. Prior to joining Kingfisher, Marc spent 15 years delivering disruptive technology-based growth in senior international roles such as Chief Operating Officer and Chief Executive Officer at Rakuten Europe and Chief Operating Officer at the French e-commerce retailer cdiscount.com. Marc, thank you so much for being here today. I just gave a brief introduction, but perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and your role at Kingfisher.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me, Natalie. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. So in terms of my background, first of all, I'm from Barcelona. I'm very lucky, and that's where I was raised. That's where I started studying, and that's where I had my very first job. But around 15 years ago, I left, and since then I've been traveling quite a lot. I lived in England for 2 times now. I'm based now in London. I've been in Germany, I've been in France, and I've been also in Czech Republic and dedicating quite a lot of periods of my career in US, in Japan. And during that period, I did pivot a lot in between some major corporations, mostly within retail and e-commerce business, but also I did a lot of other startup business into gaming, travel, edtech, etc. And right now, since the last almost 4 years, I've been at Kingfisher. So I'm the Group Digital Director at Kingfisher, and pretty much I'm in charge of 4 different areas. 1, marketplace business model. 2, everything to do with e-commerce and the key elements within that part of the business. 3, retail media. And finally, everything to do with data, including AI analytics, etc.
Fantastic. And I know we're going to dive into all of those topics in more detail. But before we do that, I think let's just take a step back and talk about Kingfisher for a moment, because it is an interesting business. And a lot of our listeners are based in the UK, so they will be familiar with B&Q and Screwfix. But you trade across 8 European markets with 6 different retail banners. So in addition to B&Q and Screwfix, you have Castorama, Brico Dépôt, TradePoint, Koshtas. Just briefly, Marc, can you talk us through the rationale for having such a diverse set of banner names. Would you say the businesses are distinct enough to help you reach customers in different ways?
We consider that one of our strengths. Our strategy, we call it Power by Kingfisher. And Power by Kingfisher aims to maximize the benefits of combining very different retail brands and with the scale and the expertise that the group brings into them. So growing by building these different brands actually allow us to be very differential because at the end of the day, we can target, as you say, different consumer segments. Simplifying a lot, we target three very different consumer segments. We have the discounter brands, such as Brico Dépôt. We have the big box banners, which they target mostly on the DIYers, people like you or me, which on the weekend we want to fix our garden. And here you have Castorama or you have B&Q. And then we have the brands that are more focused into trade, where you will recognize Screwfix or TradePoint that we have here in the UK. Somehow, all of them can benefit from the same business scalability, but at the same time, they allow us to target multiple consumers covering a much larger demand.
Let's talk about e-commerce. I'm a total retail geek, so before our conversation, I dug through some of your past annual reports, and I noticed that 5 years ago, just before COVID hit, e-commerce made up 8% of your total group sales. And correct me if I'm wrong here,
Mhm,
Mark, but I imagine that the bulk of that would have come through click and collect rather than home delivery. Now, that penetration
mhm.
rate is currently at just under 20%. So you've obviously grown your online sales in that short space of time. And your goal is to reach 30%. So, Mark, what's driving this? Because obviously we had a pandemic, which accelerated the shift to
Mhm.
digital, but the online home improvement sector is still going strong. So I wonder, are you seeing a more fundamental shift here in terms of technology and consumer behavior?
Absolutely and constantly. And as you well said, it has been a very interesting journey for us since this period over the last 5 years, not only because all the progress we have made internally, which is a lot, but also because everything that has changed into the market and the consumer perspectives. I would say that our strategy from an e-commerce perspective is to focus on offering choice, speed, and also convenience to our consumers. And what we have seen is that these three axes combine very well with the expectations that these clients have, and they have evolved and matured over the last years. For choice, in our case, we saw that the best way to match the demand of the expectations of the consumer was to focus into delivering the marketplace business model, which allow us to open our pipe to third-party vendors, and we can go more into detail into that later. And obviously, has been a great adventure that we did focus on. In terms of speed, we did focus on a lot of elements connected to the last mile in terms of the consumer delivery, making it easier to do click and collect, but also striking some partnerships, as the one you say, with Deliveroo more recently. But also there are many other things that we have been doing, connecting our fulfillment capabilities to pickup points or lockers and stuff like that. Then convenience is all about how you combine these two things to a seamless experience for our consumers, so they have the capability to choose the right times that they want to do the pickings, the capability for them to choose if they prefer to go to the store or receive it at home, and these things combined have allowed us to increase traffic, to increase conversion, to increase repetition, and number of consumers. As I say, it has been a big journey, and I would say that investing in technology, investing on a proper omnichannel proposition has been the key elements that made us improve a lot.
Hmm. That's really interesting. And I'd like to drill down into some of the things that you've just touched on. So, if we start with marketplaces, now, historically, when we heard the word marketplace, a lot of us thought of Amazon or Alibaba or eBay. These are huge
Mhm.
platforms, millions of sellers, so much choice for the customer, near infinite assortment, right? And usually pretty speedy delivery. That's the kind of model that comes to my mind when I hear the word marketplace. But today, what we're seeing is more and more legacy retailers, those with both an online and physical store presence, are moving into this space and they're finding a lot of success. So, just here in the UK, we've seen Tesco, Next, M&S, and of course, you guys at B&Q have launched third party marketplaces. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Mark. What is driving this trend and what are the benefits both for
Mhm.
retailers but also for shoppers?
It's an excellent question. In fact, if we go back to the origins of the success of the marketplace model, I think it has gone through three major stages. First, we saw a lot of generalist pure players that started at a given time to develop this kind of business model. Obviously, the Amazons of this world and many others. A few years later, it came the moment for the verticalization, where not only generalists, but the specialist players started to offer a curated experience based on the specific categories and the specific products, also combining the marketplace business model with the first party model. And that's where you get, for example, Zalando's, no, a marketplace model, which is
Mm,
also very specific in one concrete category.
or
What
Wayfair
has
and
happened
furniture
more
as well.
recently, exactly. And what you have seen more recently, and probably more recently, we can go back to the last 5 years, is that we are now getting into the era of the omnichannel marketplaces, which at a personal level, that's experience I've gone at B&Q, and it has been a great learning. Because when I joined Kingfisher, my very first mission precisely was to help at building this marketplace capability. The very different element of the question was, well, we are not a pure player. We're not a native digital operator. We are a traditional retailer who wants to embrace new technology and new ways to do the business. So how can we win? So what we have seen, not only for us, but happening across multiple markets and industries, is that by developing a marketplace and connecting it to an omnichannel traditional retailer, you have several different challenges, obviously, but many other advantages.
Mm,
Some of the advantages are very simple. First, we are a trusted, reliable brand that consumers go to by default. We have millions of consumers who have been buying in our brands for many different years. Therefore, where suddenly you are increasing your supply, where you're increasing the offering and the proposition of the choice that you give to your consumers out of these brands into an integrated experience, the way you get traction is much faster than if you are starting from scratch, you're starting from an unknown, non-respected or well-known brand. The second element, which is interesting, is about the connection with the stores. You can connect the stores with the marketplace by allowing returns. You can buy a marketplace product that is shipped from a third-party seller or your own fulfillment capability if you have it, and allow the customers to return that product into the market, into the stores. In fact, at the very beginning, we actually we did question, should we offer that possibility to our consumers? Should we offer them the possibility to return the product into our stores? Because that adds complexity. And we decided to do it because we thought that would be a competitive advantage. And at the same time, we thought that consumers will like it. And in fact, thank God we did it, because no matter if you offer it or not, consumers by default will think that they can do it, because they
mm,
actually don't care if this is a third-party product or it's not a first-party product. They will by default think, well, this is something I bought at Castorama or at B&Q. Therefore, if there is a question, if I want to return it, I'm going to go to the store. So almost accidentally, you are forced to do it. So we did that on purpose, and that actually worked very well. The other thing that you can do, which we're still testing and we are planning to embrace very soon, is offer click and collect of the marketplace products into the stores. And that suddenly starts creating a proper omnichannel experience where customers can have access to this universe of, as you say, endless products, but at the same time have a very real experience in which they can go into a store and to pick up that product. Or you can also be navigating physically in the store trying to find the right product, and your colleagues there, they might advise you online through a tab, through a tablet, where perhaps the best product you can buy is this one that we have online, and you buy it here and you're picking up in a couple of days into the store. So I think this is just the very beginning for many people experimenting how you can bring together these online marketplaces with the store experience. And the fact that we have done that from the very beginning quite well, I think it got really strong adoption from the consumers quite fast. And if you think about that situation, it's very hard to compete against that if you are a pure player, because it is way easier for B&Q or Castorama to replicate the online capabilities that pure players have, that for any online pure player to suddenly build a network of thousands of stores and a strong trust that consumers have over more than 40 and 50 years of buying into these brands. And I think that we have catch well this third wave, and we represent the new generation of these marketplaces. As you can see, also Walmart, who is doing that very well in the US, which, of course, not that verticalized as we do it, which combine very well these to compete against the pure players. And we're still learning. We're at the very beginning of the curve on that one.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear what you're saying, and I think you're absolutely right. Customers, they just expect to be able to return an item in store. They don't see a distinction between first-party brands and third-party brands. So, really interesting what you're doing there. Now, I'd like to explore the role of stores in a little bit more detail because you've just touched on how they're supporting marketplaces through click and collect and by accepting returns. And something I've said for a while now, and it sounds counterintuitive, but I really believe that the future of e-commerce is stores and that the physical store plays a huge role in helping retailers to achieve their e-commerce goals, both in that the store is a form of media and shoppers might come into the store and then
Mm,
go buy online and there's the whole halo effect and we'll come on to retail media in a little bit as well. But also, as you've just touched on, how stores have become micro fulfillment hubs in this digital era. So, what are you doing at Kingfisher to meet customers' needs here?
absolutely, and you are very right that the stores are a key pillar of the e-commerce and digital strategic success at Kingfisher. So, in many different dimensions, but going straight into your specific point, today, 93% of the orders that are bought online at Kingfisher Group are actually fulfilled by the stores. So the stores have become, by de facto, our fulfillment centers. And logically, because the stores have very strong capillarity across all geographies, this allows us to be much closer to our consumers. At the same time, we are already using the stores to stock the product that the consumers want to buy into the stores. Therefore, expanding the usage of the storage of the products for also the orders that are purchased online is not that a big leap somehow. So in a way, you are able to be closer to the consumer, get a more holistic experience for them in terms of what happened online and what happened into the store, and at the same time makes it very effective from a cost perspective because in a way you need to use this space to store products for your own consumers. And this has been one of the key pillars of the Power by Kingfisher strategy at operational level, and something that we have made a lot of progress over the last 5 years. And I think it has been one of the key elements of success of not only our efficiency, but also on the customer experience for sure. Then there are many other elements on how stores play a big role from the e-commerce perspective. As you say, they are our first branding. They are the first way that you position yourself into the market. While again, online pure players have to spend a lot of money into the Googles and the Metas of this world to be known, the stores do that work for us. And sometimes when you look at the store and you look at the store from a P&L perspective, it's hard to take that into account, but you need to consider that the marketing that they are actually doing for you, and that marketing is money that you are saving from somewhere else. And in fact, the other way around, we are starting, all the omnichannel players are starting to become quite more effective at measuring the impact that this has through the ROPO effect, not the people that makes the research of online and buys offline. And we have endless paths that consumers take. People who make the search online and they go to the store, and perhaps sometimes they go to the store, they look at what they want, and they end up buying it with the app in the same store, or they end up buying it with the tablet when they are back home, or the other way around. So from a consumer perspective, the fact that we are mixing the logistics all into the same location with the stores, but at the same time that you are using them as another media channel, it helps us to create a lot of efficiencies. And it just it just makes a lot of sense, you know. And in a way, it I see it as the future of a proper on the present and the future of the proper omnichannel experience for consumers. It's not only what you face to the consumer; it's also how you manage your fulfillment. It's the offer of the clients. It's the pricing. Everything combined into one single channel and experience.
Yeah. And recognizing, as you say, that that path to purchase is no longer linear. And today there are so many touch points. So, some shoppers might want to come in, research, as you say, or speak to a member of staff and then buy online, or someone might buy online and want to collect in store. And I can imagine as a retailer, it just must be so complex trying to meet the customers who just want to shop the way that they want to shop. So I don't envy you, I guess is the point. But I want to talk about your collaboration with Deliveroo and pick up on your point about getting closer to the consumer. I remember when this was first announced, I thought it was really innovative, just generally how Deliveroo is moving into non food. And I thought, particularly for DIY and also for gifting, I can totally see the use case. And I had Paul
Mm.
Wilkinson from Deliveroo on the podcast earlier this year. And he talked about this from Deliveroo's perspective and how their aim is to bring the high street to the customer, as he put it. So I'd love to get your take on this collaboration and just more generally how speed is important to your customers. Because I know for I think it was even before Deliveroo, Screwfix was doing 1 hour click and collect, which again, having that
Mm.
store level visibility, that is the kind of holy grail, isn't it? So just maybe some words around the inspiration behind it and whether you feel that it's helping to differentiate from your competitors.
I would say that everything we do, at the end of the day, we do it out of the perspective of choice, speed, and convenience. And this is a great example about how we find something that we believe is worth testing based on focusing on speed and convenience, because we constantly see why and how consumers demand and expect that from us. So when you think about the partnership with Deliveroo, it's just one additional channel that we have been using and testing in order to get closer to the consumers for the last mile. The same way that we launched a Screwfix Sprint, where, as you were saying, consumers can ask within 60 minutes to get something at home with a rider, or the same way we have been partnering up with Kudos in order to deliver our packages even closer to our consumers, either into pickup points, into lockers. So for us, Deliveroo is a partnership is about accessing a new channel in order to offer additional convenience and speed in our service, because constantly we see that consumers expect that. They expect that based on their experiences that they have in many other players. They expect that based on what they have seen, that of course Amazon, for example, got used to in everyone into the market. And the advantage we have is that the capillarity of our stores and how close they are to the consumers, but also to any warehouse solution that anyone may have in whatever this is a rider or directly Deliveroo, it allows us to make that connection quite quickly and bring these products at the right time, at the right place, very quickly.
Mark, let's talk about the golden quarter because we're now in peak trading period and Black Friday, it's no longer a one-day event, right? We've been calling it Black November for a while. And you know what? I noticed this year it started earlier than ever before. On Halloween, Boots, John Lewis, and Curry's were all pushing Black Friday. So here we are today. It's November 7th. We're recording, and I noticed that B&Q has joined the Black Friday party. How important is Black Friday to the home improvement sector, and how important is it to B&Q?
It is important, it is growing, and it is fluctuating and changing a lot over the last year. So I remember Black Friday starting. I started to work through Black Friday in other industries a little like around 7, 8 years ago, when Black Friday was a thing that pure players used to focus on especially on high tech and electronics, and it was really like a weekend. But I remember that even at the time, for that weekend, you could do 20% of the entire total yearly sales in that single period. Over the years, what just happened, what we have seen is that first the period got expanded So it's not anymore Black Friday or even Black November. It's somehow, it feels like a bridge between where we are and Christmas. In our case, as you say, this year we are already starting progressively to open up the different offers for the Black Friday. And what we have seen over the years is that it has become more and more important in our industry, because I think that if you go back 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't part of more specialist retailers, I would say. The other thing that it just has changed a lot for us is the opening of the marketplace. The opening of the marketplace and now suddenly having access to millions of products from thousands of sellers who are used to operate through Black Friday. They are the ones coming to us and actually asking us to offer the possibility to celebrate the Black Friday and be way more aggressive, because they are willing to come with offers. So in the past, you could have a Black Friday operation where you would offer 500 SKUs at a discount rate to beat the market. Now you may have hundreds of thousands of SKUs that allow you to go to the market to be heavily competitive. So what we see is longer times. We see more aggressivity and more people expecting it in every single one of the different categories. And for sure, for us, is an important period of the time, and every year is getting more important, I would say.
Mark, I want to move on now to talk about retail media. I presume that if you have a third party marketplace, then this is a natural next step as a way to monetize that platform and, bring in alternative revenue streams. But also, I guess from a customer point of view, to offer more personalization, more relevance for the customer. So, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing at Kingfisher in regards to retail media and how you're differentiating from your competitors in the space?
So I would say that for us, the retail media journey, simplifying it a lot, it started around 18 months ago. So that's when we started to develop our own capabilities in terms of this area, where, just to simplify a lot, what we do is to expose our traffic, impressions, and customer to sellers who want to position themselves in order to be seen. So we sell advertisement. So what we have seen about retail media, and what I'm very excited about, is that retail media creates two effects. So number one, obviously, it improves revenues. It makes margins stronger for obvious reasons. The second thing that is more exciting, and that one I didn't expect it, is that retail media, well done, it actually improves conversion. Because, as you were well saying, when you connect retail media to a marketplace creates competition. But when there is competition, you want to create the right tools. You want to bring the right tools to the sellers for them to be able to compete, to offer the best proposition to the consumers. So sellers are fully aware that retail media give them a chance for them to get better visibility. But because what we offer is based in performance, it's not only about how much they are going to be willing to pay. It's about how good the offer is, how fast they're going to ship, how good is the description and the number of images and the quality of the images they put. So for them to be more effective, for them to have better ROAS on the money they invest into retail media, they just need to be better. That creates more competition. And that competition, at the end of the day, it benefits consumers. So the beauty of that retail media proposition that I'm discovering is that it's not only something that impacts our margin, but it also impacts the consumer experience if you do it right. What I think we have done very well is that very quickly we partner up with a market leader in retail media capabilities, which is Citrus Ads, and allows to take a lot of learning from them. And we quickly opened that possibility to first-party vendors, but at the same also third-party marketplace. And because we were quite effective building the marketplace a couple of years ago, today we have thousands of mature sellers with a lot of appetite to come in to invest into the retail media. So it's good for the sellers because we give them another tool for them to improve their performance. It's good for us because obviously we are improving our margins, and it's good for consumers because we create this competition that at the end it takes them to a better proposition. Looking at the possibilities of where this can go and how much this is going into the market, I think we are just at the very beginning of the maturity in retail media, for not only for us, which we have done a good progress, but in general into the market. In fact, we believe that over the long term, retail media will represent a 2% of the total revenue that we create across the digital channels, and that's clearly a very good ambition to have.
Yeah. So How do you see this evolving in the future? Do you think we'll see more retail media in our stores with things like digital screens, for example?
Mm. I think that there are three stages into a proper retail media implementation, and everyone is kind of um, following very similar paths, I would say. So the first thing you can do is activate your own traffic, your own consumers, your own impressions that you have across your own online channels, your website and your mobile app to offer advertisement. We have around 1 billion yearly visits across the entire group. So that's quite a lot of people which is interested to buy these products, and therefore that allows us to offer a good distribution, but at the same time very good ROAS to our consumers. We are right now offering an average of between 600 and 700 ROAS on all the investment that third parties and suppliers get when they invest into retail media for our different brands. What normally you will expect will happen later is that we will co-partner up in order to do co-advertisement into external channels, so off-site advertisement. What this means is that you and a third party, and so one of our brands and one of third parties that sell into our marketplace or first-party brands, we partner up together to do advertisement into external channels, still digital, which is Google, Meta, etc. Because connecting the two brands and together into one single advertisement proposition, it delivers better ROAS than if you do it by separated. So this is the second stage where we will go, and we are actually starting to test in some of the brands on that approach. The third stage, which is kind of natural, but it requires, I would say, heavier technology and investment, is when you do that directly connected to the stores. Whatever this is, digital displays like TVs, screens, etc., or this is physical presence into the store, into a specific corner, etc. So this is for me the ultimate goal. Something that we are starting to test, but we still need to go a little beyond on the possibilities, because at the end of the day, if you want to offer a proper omnichannel experience, it also needs to be omnichannel from a retail media perspective. So for sure, next year we will be starting to test the three ways to operate across retail media. Perhaps there is a four element. It's something that you can do at any of the stages in terms of maturity, which is powering and activating your customer data through CRM to also target consumers for specific offers in a personalized manner. So we have invested a lot into personalization and into customization of what the consumers see. If we connect that with retail media through email, WhatsApp, whatever channel you can reach the consumers and you have through CRM, then is when you can target advertisement through email marketing and create another source of revenue and another good, pleasant experience for the consumers if you do it right.
So interesting. And it's moving so quickly as well. So, really interesting to hear your thoughts on that. I have two more questions I'd like to ask you. One is about AI. As
Mhm.
group digital director, I can't let you get away without getting your thoughts on AI. And then I want to wrap up with a quick question on the future of retail and where you see it going. So I've given you a little bit of notice there, Mark. um, every day it feels like we're discovering new use cases for AI. And I think it's going to radically improve the customer experience, but it's also going to radically drive operational efficiencies for retailers. And we're seeing that already. So, how are you using AI at Kingfisher? And where do you see the big opportunities for retail?
It's important to clarify what we stand for in terms of AI, because people used to connect AI with general data, and then there is one thing which is AI, and then there is Gen AI, etc., etc. So we have been working in order to utilize our data capabilities for a long period of time now. And that means that since a few years ago, we invested to build our own internal data platform, which we call Nucleus. And that took quite a long time, and we are still going through in order to identify all the key data sources, connect them all together, and bring the data in a manner that it can be comparable, measure, and utilize. That is the most important piece of work that we have done. Because if you don't have that, you can do nothing with AI. You can do nothing with anything else connected to data. So for a long period of time, we did focus into building these foundations. That more recently has allowed us to now starting to activate this data for a lot of different business purposes. And one of them is, of course, to start testing into AI capabilities more specifically. Of course, we are as excited as everyone else about the AI capabilities. But at the same time, AI is one of those things where you can easily try to boil the ocean by shooting at everything that moves. So what we decided to do last year is to create a very single framework in which we want to test AI. And we need to be very humble because it's still a test and learn approach where we need to discover where are the big benefits. We need to discover what are the big use cases because it's so easy identifying 3,000 use cases where you will implement AI, but you need to prioritize and you need to decide where you're going to target first. So what we did first is to select three key themes that for us would be important in order to focus our effort. One is everything about internal productivity gains, where we can see internal productivity gains. And I know they are very general terms, but they help us a lot. Second, where we can see dramatic improvement in terms of sales growth. And three, where we can see effective improvement into our margin. And out of that, what we started to do is to start testing and learning into different capabilities. So I can say that today, after a lot of test and learn and different capabilities development that we have gone through, we found really good best practices that we are ready to invest and to scale. First of all, we have used and we are using AI for chatbots in terms of having a direct conversation with our consumers to help them make decisions about their shopping experience. We launched Hello Casto a few months ago. Hello Casto is a chatbot in Castorama where consumers can have a very normal conversation where they can try to identify products that they don't know the name for, or they can try to identify how to fix a specific problem, such as I want to paint a wall and I really don't know what the steps I need to follow, or you need a product that compares to another product, or you need to know how two things work together. So you can now combine these things in order to have a very natural conversation with that system that takes you through the process to understanding what service and product you need to buy in a way that you really feel that someone is actually supporting you. There, what we have seen is huge adoption by consumers. We're still, even we launched it 6 months ago. We're still testing and learning, but we are having more than 100,000 consumer conversations every month with that system, and we see a clear impact in terms of customer lifetime value, conversion rate, etc., etc. The other area where we have seen a huge impact is about customer personalization. So we started developing our own internal algorithms for consumer recommendations and personalization. And that they can go into multiple directions. It can be about frequently products both together when you're trying to buy something and what do you recommend customers to buy too, in terms of what you would buy next. So you make a prediction about what a consumer would buy next based on their behavior, so you know what to offer. So what we have seen is that by connecting AI with our own internal algorithms, and most importantly, with all the data that we organize it inside our data platform, is that the conversion of these systems compared to legacy capabilities that we had before from third parties have doubled. So have doubled the conversion rate. So the benefit, it has been huge because we're not only saving money from using third-party capabilities, but with a kind of a moderate amount of resources, we are able to create significantly amount of sales. In the last 6 months, we got more than 60 million sales generated that just by these recommendation engines. For internal capabilities, there are a lot of sometimes small practices that have a huge impact. So, for example, we recently launched and developed a compliance agent. So, in the past, and still today, because we're in the process to roll it out, as a major listed company, there's a lot of compliance to follow up by all the team colleagues. And these team colleagues constantly have questions, doubts, things that they want to know together, that they want to know better. And they go to compliance team and they ask about this. What is the policy for this? What do we do for that? And there is hundreds of thousands of pages of documentation to follow in order to understand what are all the compliance regulations that you follow. So what we did is to ingest this data in an internal chatbot, and we roll out this tool to which we're doing right now to our colleagues for them to be able to ask that directly to an agent, a virtual agent, to get an immediate response. What pretty much you get is that suddenly a lot of people in compliance who needed to dedicate a lot of time into answering manual questions from colleagues, now they have way more time to dedicate into more qualitative work on that perspective. And it's very easy for us to calculate the return of building a capability like this.
Yeah.
Just to give you another example, one of the tools that we are very proud that we are testing is what we call Lens, which is our visual search engine. We built a visual search engine in collaboration with Google, which allows anyone through our app to scan a product through the app camera and automatically identify what product is this into our catalog and what other similar products we may have. And that's actually very cool, and it works very well. We tested it in 11 stores just with our colleagues and direct consumers. We saw that it has a very good adoption, and now we are working to implementing into the app. So again, the thing is making sure you target the use cases with a concrete purpose, which is framed within something that's specific that you want to achieve. Otherwise, it's very easy to boil the ocean and not get P&L impactful topics. And that's what we're trying to do. Focus, less is more, and elements that really impact consumers and P&L.
So interesting. And especially in a category like yours, where, if you're trying to reach a customer like me who dabbles in DIY, but is, certainly not an expert, that education piece is huge. So having those chatbots, having that visual search and personalized suggestions, I think all of that really does help to elevate the customer experience. So really, really interesting to hear what you're doing in that space. Now, we've covered so much ground. I just want to ask you very briefly, what are you most excited about when we think about the future of retail? There's so much happening. We've talked about AI, we've talked about retail media. Is there anything in particular that you're personally pretty excited about when we start thinking about, how we might shop in 5, 10 years time?
It's so much to pick that makes me feel super excited. I think, first, not to sound repetitive, but AI, it will change it all. I think we are not aware of how huge of a revolution this is going to be at the same level that the internet was at the time. And we are just not day one, we are day zero. We keep discovering new business cases out of the existing capabilities, which anyway will be way better in just 6 months. So I truly believe that AI will change the way we consult, we experience, we interact, and internally we manage operations. Second, I still believe we are at the very beginning of properly matching the customer expectations in terms of a real omnichannel experience, where you have multiple channels, zillions of consumer paths, but you want to make sure that they all connect with one single proposition. While I think we have done great progress, still there is a long way to go. At the same time, consumers are becoming more demanding on that all together. And perhaps the other thing to pick is about marketplace. I don't think marketplace as a business model is an alternative retail model for digital sales. I think marketplace is the new e-commerce, is the new digital model. And if you look at locations like China, more than 80, even in some locations, 90% of the total digital transactions happen through marketplace. So marketplace is here to stay, and it's just at the very beginning on how retail embraces that capability. And then how curated you want to be, how do you connect that to your proposition, how do you bring that together to your stores? There are multiple different ways to approach it, and that's how the people has to look into that in order to differentiate. But I also believe that this is only the beginning of all the multiple possibilities on how retail will evolve into the future.
Great. Mark, it's been fascinating to hear your views. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Natalie.
Thank you for listening to Retail Disrupted. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the podcast, please leave a rating or review or share it with others. It really makes a difference.